You're right on time for Hope TV Newswatch on this 27th day of November 2023. Tonight on the Dialogue Key, I'll be joined in studio by the program's officer at Siasa Place, Telen Zomo, and Dennis Okoria, public policy consultant, as they help us dissect the National Dialogue Committee report that was unveiled on Saturday. A very good evening to you and welcome to the broadcast. My name is Kennedy Kimani, and my co-presenter on the sign language interpretation tonight is Boniface Muridi. The government has declared floods a national disaster in the country, reiterating that it is working towards mitigating the situation, which has so far claimed 76 lives, rendering masses homeless. This comes after a special cabinet meeting on the response to flood situation in the country was held at State House, Nairobi today, whereby State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed has noted that the data on the ground shows that the flood situation is at an alarming stage. Our very own Grace Ahati begins our bulletin with the following report.
As heavy rains continue to wreak havoc in various parts of the country, the government has declared floods a national disaster, with the death toll clocking 76. According to the State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed, the government has put various interventions and policies in place to mitigate the situation.
The additional policy and administrative interventions sanctioned by Cabinet this morning will enhance our national resilience and preparedness for future weather and climate-driven disasters, as well as better empower the state to prevent further loss of lives, destruction of property, and interruptions to our way of life arising from the El Nino situation. Now, as part of the preliminary assessment of the severity of the situation across the country, the meeting noted that 38 out of our nation's 47 counties are within the alarm stage, a stage characterized by flash floods, general flooding in low-lying plains, rivers busting their banks, landslides and mudslides, loss of livestock and destruction of farmland and infrastructure.
Addressing the press on resolutions of a special cabinet meeting held on the response to flood situation in the country in State House, Nairobi, Mohammed has said that 38 out of 41 counties have been affected, however noting that the government had allocated 7 billion shillings to address the plight of those affected by the floods.
In that regard, Cabinet noted that the state had allocated 7 billion shillings with which it is implementing various programs to address the plight of Kenyans across the country. The funds were appropriated by Parliament and the contingencies fund as part of the 2023-2024 financial year budget and supplementary appropriations number 1 of the same financial year. The resources committed will be applied for humanitarian response, including distribution and supply of medical commodities, food and non-food items, rehabilitation of infrastructure, and resettlement of displaced families.
As part of the government's efforts to cushion farmers who have been adversely affected by the El Nino rains, the Kenya Kwanza administration has given the new Kenya Cooperative Creameries KCC 500 million shillings to buy off milk from the farmers.
To support farmers who have been adversely affected, the government has disbursed 500 million shillings to the new KCC to mop up excess milk during this rainy season. The government has also airlifted medical supplies worth 180 million shillings through the KDF and in conjunction with the Wajir County government to Wajir County.
Kenyans have thus been advised to exercise patience and caution while traveling, report any instances of flooding or landslides to the authorities, and also strictly follow all guidelines issued by the government. Reporting for Hope TV Newswatch, I'm Grace Ahati.
Thank you so much, Grace, for that report. Still at it, and fear and panic has gripped residents in highland areas of West Pokot County over the risk of possible reoccurrence of landslides following the El Nino rains pounding in the area. Highland areas of Lelan in Pokot South Sub-County and some parts of Pokot Central Sub-County, which has a high altitude zone, are experiencing torrents of rain with the worst mist and fog that has affected crops and livelihoods. The heavy rains have also rendered roads in the area impassable, hence transportation paralyzed.
Na tumehofia kabisa hii mvua mingi kabisa imenyeshwa kwa sehemu ya Sondani. Tukiona sasa hii mnyonyoko ya ardhi ambayo ilikatika mbeleni, wakati ile ilikatika huko Nyarkulian, huko upande wa Cheptongo huko, na inji ilikatika kwa sababu ya mvua mingi, na tunaomba serikali kuu watu tupatie. Sasa tumepanda miti na miti sasa iko chini, na tunaomba sasa serikali atupatie miti ingine ile tuongeze na tupunguze sasa maneno ya ukatisho ya dunia hii.
Tuko pia hapa ili kuhamasisha watu wetu mambo ya maendeleo. Serikali ina mipango mingi, hasa wakati huu ambapo kuna mambo ya El Nino. Sehemu hii imekuwa na shida wakati ule 2019 ya landslides, na jinsi ambavyo tumeambiwa kuna El Nino, tunangependa kuhamasisha kwamba wawe pia chonjo ili waweze kuhamia sehemu za juu mvua inapozidi kunyesha.
Hii ni area ambayo imekumbwa na shida ya disaster mara kwa mara, kwa sababu ni sehemu yenye muinuko, na 2019 tuliweza kupoteza watu kutoka sehemu hii kwa sababu ya maneno ya landslides na mudslides na maneno ya flooding ama mfuriko. Kwa hivyo sisi kama county pia haya maneno yako katika area yangu, na tunajaribu kabisa kama county kuweka further za emergencies ili tuweze kununua lightning arresters. Ninajua hapa awali tumeweka chache, lakini bado nyingi zinahitajika ili kukinga maneno ya lightning strikes kwa sehemu hii.
Now, parents and students from Green Hill Primary School in Kisii County and Kitengela International School in Kajiado County have filed a petition at the Milimani law courts today to stop the ongoing Form 1 selection exercise. The parents and students argue that the marks received do not align with the expectations. The parents and pupils have accused Education CS Ezekiel Machogu of being at fault for the many shortcomings in the results he announced last week. Here's our very own Nicholas Kivite with the details.
Parents and students from Green Hill Primary School in Kisii County and Kitengela International School in Kajiado County have filed a petition at the Milimani law courts today to stop the ongoing Form 1 selection exercise. According to Education Minister Ezekiel Machogu, the exercise was set to kick off today. Addressing the press in the Milimani law courts, Advocate Dansan Omari, who is representing the concerns of the parents and the kids in the court, accused Minister of Education Ezekiel Machogu of being at fault for the many shortcomings in the results he announced last week.
What we have today is a momentous situation in the country where young children below the ages of 18 through their parents have gone to school to challenge Kenya National Examination Council in terms of the irregularities in their exams. The children are here. They will tell us the type of preparation they did for their exams, what they expected, and what has come out, and the impact it is going to cause, or it has caused, to thousands and thousands of young Standard 8 kids who did their exam.
According to the chairperson of the Parents Union at the Kitengela International School, the marks that the students got in the KCPE are not the marks they expected based on how they used to perform.
The mutilation and the adulteration of the KCPE exam results for our pupils and the kids of this country is very worrying, because these are the future leaders. The seeds we are planting cannot actually be gainsaid. It's only that we do not want to really bring everybody into disrepute the good work that has been done by the ministry.
The students and parents of the two schools speaking to the journalists today have asked the government to intervene and stop the ongoing Form 1 selection exercise until their results are reviewed.
I'd like to ask the government, are you taxing our marks or what? Because if the ballot papers can be recounted, why not our marks? I repeat, if the ballot papers can be counted, why not our marks?
We want justice for our children, the true mark, the true reflection of the abilities of our children. It's so hurting when the mother sits and looks at her child not eat, waking up every morning, crying because she was not given justice. It's so painful. We just want justice.
According to Omari, there are schools where students got similar marks in one subject, which he claims is among the evidence that the results were flawed. In Kitengela International School, the best student this year had 358 marks, unlike the previous years where more than 100 students were getting 400 marks.
We have done even mock exams. Most students are scoring above 400 marks. About 100 to 110 students scoring above 400 marks, they are scoring around 470, 460. So if you standardize that, should be coming up to 430 or 428, the one the highest student scored. But right now, our highest student scored 358. We believe that's not fair.
Reporting for Newswatch, my name is Nicholas Kivite.
Thank you so much, Nicholas, for that report. The High Court will on the 26th of January rule on whether it will strike out a petition challenging National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula's declaration that Kenya Kwanza is the majority party. The petition stems from a ruling made by Wetangula in October last year, where he declared that the Kenya Kwanza coalition is the majority party. What followed was a petition filed in court this year by 12 voters who argued that some of the MPs violated the constitution by defecting from Azimio to Kenya Kwanza.
It is said that elected officials of a political party, before joining any other political party, must resign from the sponsoring political party. Again, on his own, which can be defined and delineated because it is 6 alphabet from A to Z. He then starts a fairly ingenious numbering, which is AA, Africa. Relief AA is now directed to the 10th and 13th respondent, a member of Jubilee. It is the business of the citizens of this country.
5 supplementary submissions for and on behalf of the 3rd and 4th respondents. One thing that my colleague has overlooked or forgotten to mention is the effect of Section 12(2) of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act. That section gives the holder of the office of the Speaker of the National Assembly immunity from prosecution, both in civil and criminal matters. I urge you to so find and protect him as has been intended by legislation. Strike out the petition and we move on to the next issue.
Thank you, Alfred, for that report. Investments, Trade and Industry CS Rebecca Miano has today signed performance contracts with her 3 principal secretaries in a meeting at the Kenya School of Government, where she called for a whole-of-ministry approach in the contract's implementation. CS Miano has pledged to adopt a consultative approach at all levels and promised to make full use of staff experiences and expertise to actualize the ministry's mandate for effective service delivery to Kenyans. Alfred Say has more.
Cabinet Secretary for Investments, Trade and Industry, Rebecca Miano, has today unveiled her vision of the ministry during an inaugural meeting with ministry-wide staff members. Miano has unveiled strategic priorities for economic recovery in the country, informed by Kenya Kwanza's bottom-up transformation agenda, including development and management of special economic zones, exports, and enhancing market access for Kenyan goods and services.
To promote development and management of special economic zones, export processing zones, the industrial parks and county aggregation centers. Number 3, to promote exports and enhance market access for Kenyan goods and services. Number 4, to promote value addition and agro-processing, textiles and leather and other value chains. 5, to promote quality standards and combat counterfeiting. Promotion and development of iron and steel industry. and other industries like automotive, pharmaceuticals, building and construction, and so on and so forth.
Cabinet Secretary Rebecca Miano added that her ministry has a mandate to improve Kenya and Kenyans' livelihoods by urging all ministries to work together in a whole-of-ministry approach.
Let us embrace a whole-of-ministry approach. I am glad that I've had several sessions with the principal secretaries, and we are all embracing a whole-of-ministry approach. Get to know what is happening in other state departments. If there is an inquiry about a certain department, if you do not belong to it, but you are in our ministry, you can even give a preliminary good response as you refer them to a person who has finer details.
CS Miano intends to make full use of the experience and expertise of the staff in the ministry by calling on briefings.
I intend to make full use of the experience and expertise of staff, and in this regard, I will regularly be calling on technical officers for briefings on their subject areas. Not only the technical officers, but anyone I feel that will have the information that I need.
Alfred Say for Newswatch.
Thank you, Alfred, for that report. Kenyans will now have free access to all international conventions the country has entered into. This is after the government today launched the newly established treaties website and a database. Speaking during the launch, Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Singoe Korir, confirmed that Kenya has ratified 252 treaties and is a member of 84 international organizations, adding that the database will play a key role as an effective instrument that will improve accessibility, simplify treaty management procedures, and demonstrate the country's commitment to the international community. Crossing borders now, and NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has called for the extension of pause in the fighting in the Gaza so as to allow for more aid and the release of hostages held by terrorists in the Strip. The 4-day ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas was intended to enable a hostage prisoner swap as well as to allow aid supplies into the otherwise sealed off Palestinian territory. The ceasefire is set to expire tomorrow.
Allow for much needed relief to the people of Gaza and the release of more hostages. The suffering we have seen underlines the need for a lasting political solution.
Let's now get down to business, and mobile money e-wallet firm SasaPay has introduced a new cashback model designed to empower business owners to reduce the cost and bolster profitability by receiving compensation for collecting payments from customers via SasaPay's flagship Lipa na SasaPay platform, as opposed to incurring charges. This innovative approach also allows SMEs to earn a daily prorated cashback at the rate of 1.2% per annum for using the SasaPay platform.
We have put together a very lucrative cashback model for the merchant that will encourage them to accept payments from all mobile wallets and all bank accounts in Kenya digitally. And what will happen is that the more you collect through SasaPay, the more you earn from it. The earning is a percentage of the volume you collect, which is capped at a certain point per month. But the whole idea of the cashback is actually to encourage you as a business to get paid through SasaPay and to get paid digitally. For years, merchants have been incurring the cost of getting paid through a merchant fee, which actually reduces their profitability. This model, where they are actually getting paid, they are actually getting something back when they get paid via SasaPay, increases their profitability. It's actually earning them money the more they get paid through the cashback. And once the money is in their SasaPay account, they can now be able to pay anybody else out there into whichever bank account, into whichever wallet, again, at very cost-effective rates. So the cashback is basically a way of telling them, let us improve your profitability. Let us improve your way of doing business let us make you more competitive in the market through taking care of, we take over the burden of the charges of the payments, and we leave you to do what you do best, and which is running your business. We have built a fantastic model and a fantastic value add on our SasaPay wallet for consumers. We would want you to taste it and feel it and experience it. So if you are paying into any of our merchants through any other channel, whatever fee again you are charged will be refunded back to you, but into your SasaPay wallet, which will be automatically created for you. And all you will need is to complete the KYC on onboarding, and you'll enjoy it.
Treasury CS Professor Njuguna Ndung'u has said that the African youth and women stand to greatly benefit from the technological boom and educational improvements facilitated by the African Continental Free Trade Area. Speaking at the official launch of the 59th African Economic Research Consortium's biannual workshop plenary, CS Ndung'u said the improvements will be instrumental in the development of employable skills.
Countries like Kenya or any other African countries will be in a better position to boost its growth opportunity. Migration is important because not all those youth can be employed on the continent. Some of them are seeking to go and work somewhere else. We do have some governments that have put together programs to facilitate migration of Africans. One of them is the UK policy with the government of Kenya. Most African countries have the same. As researchers, we need to deep dive into those agreements and see the extent to which this can be turned to the advantage of Africa. Most of the migration movement is mainly from the internally displaced. So we need to understand all the elements that are causing the internal displacement of population in Africa, and we know most of this is poverty, but some of that is also a conflict. So this will then provide elements for actionable research issue for youth unemployment.
Kenya has also leveraged its education system to equip students with skills that are required in the labor market. Initiatives such as free primary education, free secondary education, and free technical and vocational education, and expansion of the university education access have provided necessary pathways for skills development. In the true spirit of tapping the demographic dividend, the government of Kenya has established the National Youth Service to foster youth active participation in the national development programs and activities. This has enhanced economic opportunities for youth in Kenya.
And to some sports in action now, KCB Football Club head coach Bernard Mwalala believes they can collect a hat-trick of wins in the next match of the FKF Premier League match against Shabana FC. Mwalala says Sunday's 2-1 win away at Murang'a Sealers instill belief in the playing and technical unit ahead of their duel with the league newbies. The Bunkers took the lead in the 12th minute courtesy of Francis Kahiro, who headed in Herit Mungai's free kick. Defensive midfielder Hanif Wesonga then headed in KCB's second in the 48th minute. Awita Bas then pulled one back for Murang'a Seals.
I think nataka kwanza kuwashukuru the boys for the work kazi kubwa ambao wamefanya kwa mchezo leo. Ukizingatia hunting ground kama hapa Murang'a haikuwa rahisi. Na nadhani tangu msimu uanze kumekuwa na issue ya back to back win. Na nadhani for the first time during season imeanza hadi kufikia sasa tumepata hiyo back to back win. Na nadhani hii ni motisha kubwa, hii ni morale to the boys. Na nadhani pia ukienda mbele ni one game at a time. Nadhani siku zote tunaangalia kwamba ligi ni marathon. Nadhani kila mara tunakumbusha vijana kwamba tujitume katika kila mchezo. Lazima turudi katika drawing board, tuendelee kwa sababu kumekuwa na makosa ambayo yamejitokeza. So nadhani hata ukiangalia katika dakika za mwisho ni kama wamerusha goli moja, tumekuwa tukiconsider dakika za mwisho. Nadhani hiyo ndio correction ambayo lazima kama kocha ama wenzangu tuende kufanya hiyo marekebisho. Kama hii itakuwa ni motisha kwa game ambayo inakuja. Nikidhani sasa hiyo fear ya away matches inadhani inaanza kutoka kwa vijana. Kuelekea kwa mchezo ya Shabana, nadhani hii itatupea kipaumbele kwamba tunaweza, na nadhani inshallah tutafanya vizuri.
And Alejandro Garnacho scored a glorious goal of the season contender as Manchester United moved into the top 6 in the Premier League with a clinical 3-0 win against an energized but blunt Everton side at Goodison Park. The young Argentina winger celebrated his first goal of the season inside 3 minutes with an all-time classic in the English top flight as he met Diogo Dalot's cross with his back to goal to send a breathtaking overhead kick spinning beyond England goalkeeper Jordan Pickford from around 14 yards out. Only that to come to the end of the first part of this broadcast, but after the break, we go straight to the Dialogue KE. Stick around.
So this parent calls me, sits after service and says, "Young man, you do not know what you've done," because tells me that my son comes and tells me that, "Dad, I have also been struggling with ABCD. His was a mix of alcohol and pornography." And just hearing Justo on Route 104, I feel a young person like me give his testimony on how God has moved in his life. And I requested to meet the young man, and we met over coffee, became good friends. And I told him as well, listen, by me sharing does not mean, because the devil puts banana peels all over. Scripture tells us that, no weapon fashioned against you shall prosper. It doesn't say that weapons will not be fashioned. No, it says no weapon. It means weapons will be fashioned. And he will put traps all over. Right from your phone. You open Instagram, you see an image. And all of a sudden, it plays back. All those things. So that's another, because the battle is in the mind. That is why Paul says in Romans 12:1, not be conformed by the patterns of the world, but rather be transformed by the renewing of the mind. He knows it's here. The devil knows. And this guy is millions of years old. He's not our age mate. For those who remember when I used to tell like that, right? He's not your age mate. Stop saying at you, me, I know at you have been saved for 15 years. Dude, the devil has been in existence for millions of years. So guess what? He knows everything about you. Okay? But greater is he that is in you than he that is in you. We walked together, and I'm happy to say that he found his deliverance. And he became also a peer champion, as it is, an educator. And for me, those are some of the things that, wow, without Hope FM, really the platform of Hope FM, and as Reverend Tomboy used to tell us as well, this is a platform not for you, but God is using you. The initiative Friends of Hope is more or less like what Romans 10:17 says, that faith comes only by the hearing, and hearing through the word of God. But how will they hear if somebody does not go to tell them? Think about that Muslim brother or sister who, because of you being a friend of hope and supporting with your 100 bob or whatever it is, that in Friday evening, by chance, they listen to Yesu Ndianjia. And then because of you supporting and being a friend of hope, the message will reach them in Zanzibar, in Mombasa, in whatever it is. Mimi ni Rafiki Mso. I'm a friend of hope. I'm just as Awaka. I would like for you pia ukwe Rafiki Mso.
Get ready for the most electrifying gospel event of the year, Praise Atmosphere 2023, on the 9th of December at Sitam Karen, Nairobi, from 2 p.m. onward, featuring Evelyn Wanjiru, Prosper Ochimana from Nigeria, Rehema Simfukwe from Tanzania, Edith Wairimo, Celestine Donkor from Ghana, Wilberforce Musioka, Solomon Mukubwa, Kestin Bogo, and Sharon Ishavuka from Kenya. Regular tickets are available for just 1,000 shillings, 2,000 shillings at the gate, and for the children 3 to 12 years, it's only 500 shillings. VIP and VVIP tickets are also available. Visit www.praiseatmosphere.com/events or use paybill number 800-8575, account Praise. Praise Atmosphere 2023, uniting hearts in worship.
I've actually been trying to find a balance. It's been really tough and hectic, but everyone says once you get a hang of it, becomes better, and I don't know, but I'm hoping to find a balance soon because it's really been hectic. But you've been in the job industry for a long time, so I think you would know better. Sindio?
Huh? What time is it? I need to catch up on Leadership Forum. Did they have a radio here? Never mind. I brought my own.
No way. You can't be serious. Wait, why do you have a radio and you can just catch up with the shows on Hope FM podcasts?
Really? Even Meet of the One?
Yeah. I mean, you can find them on whatever platform, name it. AfriPods, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it.
But I'm not subscribed on any of them.
So no worries. You can just check out the latest episodes on hopemediakenya.org.
You can now listen to select Hope FM programs on your favorite podcast streaming platform or directly on our website, www.hopemediakenya.org. Listen and live. Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries, with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station, with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live.
It's finally here. The breakfast show that will kickstart your morning with a message of hope, coupled up with wholesome music, and of course, captivating conversations that matter to you.
We shall touch on topics on law, relationships, the Christian walk, and in addition, we will also be keeping you up to date with news and all the trending topics.
Join me, Beatrice Watare,
and me, George Gishuru, every Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Hope at Dawn.
Only on Hope TV, where you look
and live.
Je, ushawahi kuweka jambo kwenye mizani? Ushawahi kupata uzito wake? Haya basi, usitapetape zaidi. Naomba unigande, maana mizani ipo hapa kwa ajili yako.
Vyakula na mbegu za kitamaduni,
na kutuliza fikra na kukuwezesha kupima masuala ibuka katika jamii, tena kwa busara. Tukutane mizani kila Ijumaa saa 1 machweo kwenye runinga ya Hope TV.
Welcome to the Dialogue KE. Tonight on the show, I'm joined by the programs officer at Siasa Place, Telen Zomo, and Dennis Okore, a public policy consultant, as they help us dissect the National Dialogue Committee report that was unveiled on Saturday. Karibuni sana to the show.
Thank you.
Let me begin by you, Tele. I mean, what's your impression on the report? I'm sure you've read.
I think so far there are a few interesting things, a few interesting suggestions that they have made. But I think one thing that we're starting to see is that this is more or less similar to what we've seen in the past, where politicians come together and they try and look at their own interests and try and figure out, okay, what exactly do we need? Do we want to add more positions in the Constitution? Something similar to the BBI, although not as it doesn't have as many proposals as the BBI did, but it looks as though they want to more or less change certain aspects of the Constitution, especially when it comes to matters of government, when they talk about entrenching the position of the Prime CS or Prime Minister into the Constitution, when they talk about positions of leader of opposition into the Constitution. So it looks as though they are more or less trying to look at changing the governance structures. I think on the matter of cost of living, which has been a big issue and has been a big conversation. I don't think that was really addressed. Yeah, they spoke a little bit about wastage in government, especially when it comes to matters of traveling, but that's something that we've known for a long time. But there isn't any proposal as far as lowering the cost of living in the report.
All right, Dennis, let me get to you. I mean, what's your general impression on the report that you've waited for so long?
Yeah, I think it's an anticlimax to start with, because when this committee was put together, the whole country has been waiting for a magical moment.
Mm-hmm.
This magical moment was thought that would come with new things. And as Taylor said rightfully, we've been this road before,
mm-hmm.
and we are just back into a period of political jostling that is about to unfold, where people will align along interests. We've already seen the opposition team from Azimio already aligning into two, and that's quite interesting. I'm sure also on the Kenya Kwanza side, they are divided opinion about the way forward about this. But looking at how the president commented that he's okay with it, I think that has an indication on how it will go. But I think we need to see also how this will pan out in Parliament once the 21 days has elapsed, so that we see how this comes to force. But generally, there's really nothing new. It's just the usual stuff. And actually, some of the things that the committee has taken as substance, some of them really do not require a committee of such. It just requires leadership and pronouncement and making the right decision. So I think in some way I also see we're being taken for a ride, but let's see how it goes.
All right. Tele, do you think this report has actually fulfilled the expectations of Kenyans?
No, I don't think so. I think that if you look at the process or how we got to creating this committee, it was through what they were calling manamanos and all the protests that were taking place in the country. And the protests were really taking place because people were tired of the cost of living. I don't think many Kenyans were really interested in matters to do with constitutionality or changing the constitution. I think people were just fed up with issues of cost of living. That's what really brought these people on the table. But that, as much as I know the former vice president, who is the co-chair, has tried to say that they have spoken or tried to speak to it, it's not an issue that has been really dealt with. So I don't think it's speaking to the interests of Kenyans. I think it is speaking to the interests of our politicians.
Yeah, because they actually recalled the Treasury CS to be able to explain to them the issue of the cost of living. And some of the recommendations in the report are all arms of government to cut travel expenditure by 50%, SRC to review daily subsistence allowances for state and public offices with an aim of reducing the cost by 30%, and the road maintenance levy and fuel anti-adulteration levy to be reduced by 5 shillings and 3 shillings respectively. I mean, Dennis, do the proposals respond to the question on the cost of living?
Yeah, I think how I see the cost of living is also an issue of sustainability, and it requires a raft of measures. One, in terms of leadership. If you look at how government is run in Kenya over all the regimes, one cross-cutting theme has been public wastage. And I think that is something that will really demonstrate great leadership. And I think all the Kenyan presidents, including the present president, I think there's more talk to it, but there's really more than meets the eye. The second thing is about taking firm steps to really address what the real issues are in terms of cost of living. And here is looking at even how the policies that are being implemented currently are elevating the issue of inflation. You see the government has taken policies that are favoring government in terms of revenue, but on the other side, it's bringing unintended consequences whereby we're finding that what we call the common mwananchi, they're struggling. Each and every day we wake up to a new tax, And someone was even joking that we should be prepared for an El Nino tax. Yeah. So everything is being taxed. So when you hear the government talking about, the only thing they talk about is fertilizers, and they have given farmers fertilizer, and now the cost of living will go down. But if you look at the tax burden, it's something that should worry us, and it really puts the issue of cost of living to be something that will keep on skyrocket. But as that has happened, also when you look at the recent weeks, we've seen almost 10 companies issuing profit warnings. And what does that tell you is that there's no enabling environment for these businesses to do business the way they are. And what we are likely now to see is job losses, and what that has a lot of ramification from a socioeconomic perspective, and even looking at the rise of other things like crime and all that kind of thing. But, and you know, we're just also not yet fully out of the post-pandemic challenge. So it's quite a bit hard, and it really requires firm leadership to really address this thing of cost of living, and it can't be business as usual. And I'm just afraid, because with this report being launched, we might have another 6 months or even 1 year of political activity, because one of the recommendations they're talking about is going to audit the 2022 election.
Yeah.
And I can assure you that one will be a hot potato, because there's never been leadership to really address this issue. And you could remember we had, after the post-election violence of 2007, we had a lot of reports, some of the recommendations, like a Kriegler report. These are things which still has a lot of pending issues. So I'll be surprised they will do some magic with this. So we're still in for problems, I think.
I will get to the electoral justice question, and let me get to you, Tele. I mean, do you think this is the issue of the cost of living has really been politicized?
I don't know if it has been politicized per se, because it's an issue that is actually affecting Kenyans, right? It's something that, you know, even for us, I think we feel it. We feel the difference, at least in the last 1 year, considering how many taxes have been introduced. I would say this. I think I did not think that we needed a committee, a national dialogue committee, to deal with cost of living. I think this is something that really Parliament should have been dealing with, right? Because it is their job. Number one, they're the ones who make the budget, right? And they're the ones who are responsible for the finance bill, responsible for putting in taxes. Within that process, there is public participation. He was talking about the companies that have been issuing profit warnings. If you go back to the finance bill, if you look at the public participation that was taking place, you will notice that some of these organizations, whether it was Kenya Association of Manufacturers or KEPSA and other private sector bodies, were actually trying to warn Parliament that the finance bill, as it was, the introduction of a lot of taxes would have a negative effect on business, but they didn't necessarily take that into consideration. So I don't feel that this is something that needed this committee to deal with. I think it could have been dealt with in Parliament and also with the executive by trying to put in the right policies. So I don't understand why really we needed a dialogue committee for this.
All right, let's shift gears to electoral justice, and some of the recommendations are the evaluation of the 2022 election process, as well as the IEBC Reconstitution Selection Panel to be expanded from 7 to 9 members. Another recommendation in the report is the presidential election petition to be heard and determined within 21 days from 14 days, and legal reforms passed less than 18 months before the election to take effect in the next electoral cycles. Is this an answer to the question of electoral justice that we've experienced as a nation, injustice rather?
Yeah, I think something that is interesting is that Kenya is always perpetually in a state of anticipating the next election. And I think that is something very unfortunate, because if you look at the conversation around the proposed areas, it's purely political. The political class are the ones who are jostling. And I think in some way, it takes us ways back into the 90s. The IPPG process, where, there were inter-party jostling for how the electoral processes will run. And I think that is something that we like to see happening. And one of the things that is interesting is that the real issues that have caused us to have divisions during elections, I think there's still more to meet the eye in terms of that. When we are looking at the issue of the Electoral Commission, I think in Kenya, in the past, it has always been the one who decides, the referee, is almost sure that they will win the match. And I think that's the case for the electoral body. The other thing that is also interesting, which you haven't mentioned, is the issue of the borders. So you see there is already a conversation of coming on how they want to do delimitation of some of the borders. That is something also quite interesting. But the question here is who benefits? Yeah, who benefits? When you talk about electoral justice and even the proposals from this committee, who benefits? Very few proposals really look at the common man, the Wanjiku. And if you look at even like he's mentioned something about the public participation. If you look at the 2010 constitution, it's kind of framed as a people-driven constitution. Of course, there are varied viewpoints around it. But one of the things is that what is the threshold of these constitutional proposals that are being proposed by the committee from a point of public participation? How are the people informed? And are these the pertinent issues that regards elections that we need to really solve? Because one of the biggest things that our elections lack is issue of transparency. Yeah? Yeah, we vote, but we don't know where the decisions are made. Like, I think that is something we still don't have a common commonality around it. I think the 2002 moment is still been deficient in the last, in 2007, 2013, and the most recent election. So I don't think we are still there in terms of electoral justice, and it requires more. It requires leadership, it requires institutional, it requires legal reforms, but who benefits? I think it's a question we need to ask.
All right, Tele, I guess you've seen the recommendations in matters of electoral justice. Are they a magic bullet to the problems that we face as a nation in matters of election disputes?
I think Dennis mentioned something very important earlier, which is the Kriegler report.
Yeah.
If we could have implemented the Kriegler report fully, I think it would have solved a lot of our problems. If we are unwilling to implement it, what makes us think that now we're going to implement these new recommendations or whatever the audit will say to try and address these issues? What makes us think that now this will solve it? I don't think so. Another thing is we have to ask ourselves on the question of where do we say the role of the Supreme Court is in matters of election? Because are we now saying that the Supreme Court rulings should simply be ignored, because one group or one team does not necessarily like what they say? I think when the Supreme Court rules on an election, it's very important to hear and listen to what they have to say. I think they speak well on matters to do with elections. People agreed with the Supreme Court when under Maraga when they nullified the elections. They agree with them now when they support or they accept the election results. So there's a question of, number one, where does the Supreme Court ruling lie in all of these things matters to do with elections? And number two, as I said, I think if we are unwilling to implement the past recommendations, I'm not sure that these other recommendations are going to help us solve anything.
So we need to relook on the previous reports on the Kriegler report.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, and I mean, right now IBC is not fully constituted, and some of the recommendations actually will require us as a nation to go to the referendum the issue of the establishment of the office of the opposition leader with 2 deputies and the entrenchment of the office of the prime cabinet secretary in the constitution. I mean, as a nation, are we really prepared for a referendum?
Yeah, I think we are not prepared, definitely. And it takes us back to the framing. Like if you look at the 5 areas where they were framing the issues that the committee was to look at, I think within the committee, there were so many lawyers who could have foreseen this. And to some extent, you could see, like, you could think maybe this was a buying time tactic, so that as we come from this Mandamano period, there's a kind of lull where there's some discussion somewhere. And I think the tragedy is that as a country, our leadership is defined, or our national agenda is also defined by so many committees. And he has said we have so many reports, and that's the truth. Yeah. So if you look at what they're proposing, and it will involve constitution, and we might, though I still feel like the issue of going for a referendum is still far-fetched, because there's also budgetary issues when it comes to a referendum, and the framing of the referendum question requires quite a lot of time. So those things could be there, but I don't think we are ready for a referendum, because there are many things to be in place to ensure that we have a credible referendum like 2005. Yeah.
All right. Charlie, are we ready for a referendum?
No, I think I agree with I agree with Dennis on this issue. As I said before, this is just politicians looking after their own interests. I mean, we're basically now talking, I think, about we're trying to sneak in a conversation here about the system of government. I think now when you start talking about a leader of official opposition, we've already seen, by the way, in Parliament, that now cabinet secretaries are appearing before plenary, which was never the case. There seems to be this conversation that people want to have, whether the presidential system is working or it's not working. We seem to want to have it, but we're only having it in as far as positions are concerned, not how the system itself is actually working. But I think something also very interesting that we need to remember, that some of these recommendations are not actually new. You remember last year, the president had a memo to Parliament where these were some of the recommendations that he had put in place. So it's as if there seems to be an interest, even on his side, as much as he was against BBI, to seem to want to tweak or change some of the constitutional aspects. But I don't think we're ready for a referendum. I think right now, with where the economy is, number one, and the challenges that we're facing, I think we have much more pressing issues than going for a referendum to change some of these things.
All right. Now, on Thursday, the Azimio leader will give the direction in regards to the report. I mean, I know we cannot presume what he's going to say, but do you think this is actually a red flag?
No, I don't think it's a red flag, because I think as a political leader who has a substantial majority and his pronouncements matter, I don't think it's a red flag, because he has to pronounce himself either way, and he will have an opinion just the same way the president has done. But more importantly, what we would like to see or hear is what is the way forward for the country. And of course, whatever he says or does not say will have some ramifications. But it's just to endorse the idea that this conversation is for politicians. Yeah, it's coming out very clearly. Because the common mwananchi, I don't think they will even read the 259 pages of the document, you know. Yeah, because the former prime minister said he had not read it, so he wanted to read it so that he can comment about it. But ideally, it's something, before even you read, you can already see where the issues are. So I don't think it's a red flag. It is in his right to pronounce himself. But now how people will react to that, I think, is now what we need to see. What will it really mean, and also how the government will take that. But I don't think it should be an issue because he informed the process, him and the president, to form the committee. So he rightfully has a voice into that.
All right. We saw the bipartisan talks fail for the first time, and then now we have the National Dialogue Committee, and the president has actually congratulated the team for the work, saying that they have done a good job, but now we're waiting for the opposition leader to give his remarks. I mean, if he does not agree with this, what next?
That's a very good question. I think one of the things I think we're seeing, first of all, coming from the report was that if you look at the Azimio team, you already have a number of people who have come out to, rubbish the report, including individuals who are sitting in that committee. We saw that with the former CS, Eugene Wamalwa. We've seen it with Martha Karua. And of course, we're seeing now reports in newspapers that the former president himself seems not to have been a fan of the president. That's if we are to believe the reports that we're reading in the newspaper. I think what the former prime minister is going to try and do is to try and get consensus within his team. I think that's what the period between now and Thursday is about. It's about speaking to the people, speaking to the individuals in Azimio. If he does not accept the report, where it's going to be a very tricky situation, because now we're going to have to ask ourselves, does that mean that they will be going back to the streets, right? Will the president accept for there to be another, more dialogue? I think it will be a very tricky situation if he does not accept it. I think we'll just have to wait and see what he says the way forward would be. But hopefully with that we don't get the violent protests again in the country. I think that is the one thing I would hope doesn't come back.
All right. Moving forward, I mean, the talks, the report is already out. The former prime minister can agree with it, and he can also not agree with the report. I mean, what next as a nation if he doesn't?
No, I think for now it's an opportune time for Kenyans to really reflect and think about the future of the country from a perspective of what is it that we can do as a people. And one of the things at a personal level I've been thinking about is to look at where we've come as a country and where we really want to go.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I like is the Rwandan model, where they call for a national grassroots focused meeting. It's a conference that runs all throughout the week. And here people talk about issues that really affect them. And the president also comes to attend it. And the reason why I'm referencing this is that as the people who elect leaders, as the people who elect the politicians, we have lowered down some of our standards as a people. And this has in turn come to hurt us. So I think it's a moment of reflection, and it shouldn't be a moment for despair. But one of the things at our individual level, in our areas or our spheres of influence, we have to start controlling the narrative as a people so that we start championing the future we may want to see. Of course, that's too aspirational, because as we speak, everyone is being beaten by this thing called the cost of living. And sometimes you cannot even think straight, because in a matter of weeks, people will be back to school, and it will quite be heavy everywhere. So it's not a time to go back to the streets. It's not a time to take actions which can further elevate aggravate our situation, but to think about what kind of country we want to make at our own individual level, because I think the politicians have betrayed this country, unfortunately, and they will want to continue doing that at their own expense. So irrespective of what they said, I think we need to take charge of our destiny.
Okay, as Kenyans, we need to take charge of our destiny. I guess that's a very good point to end our discussion tonight. Many thanks to you, Dennis Okore, public policy consultant, and Telenzomo, the programs officer at Siasa Place. And thank you so much to you at home for watching the program. And on behalf of the whole team that made this broadcast a success, have yourselves a blessed night. My name is Kennedy Kimani, and my co-presenter on the sign language interpretation has been Boniface Moridi.